Hello, guys. Good afternoon. Welcome to this monster session about privacy and AI with two of the biggest brains in the industry. My name is Lorenzo. I'm head of comms at Venice, and I have the absolute pleasure of moderating this conversation. Context for this is this week we had a huge launch. Venice just rolled out verifiable privacy, TEE, and end-to-end encrypted models powered by Near. So today, Eric and Ilya are going to talk about what it actually takes to build AI that doesn't or can't spy on its users, what privacy means in a world where millions of agents do our bidding or we do their bidding, and the importance of privacy as we speedrun super intelligence. So glad everybody could join us. How are you guys doing?
Good, yeah.
Good. Ilya, you just came back from NVIDIA GTC. How was it?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, it was good. It's definitely, AI is eating the world. And so we're seeing that happening. And also the claws are eating AI. There's like tents to set up OpenClaw for people, which also means that there's a huge opportunity to make the claw actually work without you needing to have a like hand holding to get it to work. But yeah, I think people understand that the AI is evolving quickly, and then there's kind of a now there's no way to not engage with this, right? That's really probably the feeling. It's like everybody has to have a strategy, has to have a plan, and has to use these tools to the max.
Yeah, it's definitely an attack of the claws currently. What about privacy? Is that like
I wish there was a filter that would like put the
claws on the
$1 billion idea.
Yeah,
right there.
Who's building this?
We'll Kilogram. Let's go.
Kilogram. We'll put our claws on.
Every photo you post a photo, it adds claws to everything.
And what about like privacy? How is that something was that a big topic at NVIDIA GTC?
Or I think it's still not there yet. Honestly, I think this is a fight we've been having, which is like getting it to the kind of awareness that this is important and useful. I think people are curious, and there is, I've talked to some journalists, and kind of people are starting to understand there is kind of repercussions. I think there's like kind of a feeling like, oh yeah, we kind of doing the same thing we did with social networks, where everybody's like, okay, let's go. And then, a few years later, it's like, wait, what happened? Yeah. So, but I think it's not there. Like the knowledge that it's possible to do actually AI privately is not there. And then I think the capability versus privacy trade-off, everybody's still on the capability side. And kind of, I think the people still questioning, like, are open weight models, kind of matching what I need? Like everybody's like, I just want the best model. What? Then you ask, like, what are you asking it? And it's like, well, how to cook some soup. It's like, okay, well, maybe you don't need that the best model. So like, I think it's like people want to be on the best model, and I think so that's where like the capability is driving forward. And so creating that trade-off is really important. And again, I think this is where claws are kind of come in interestingly, because for example, in Ironclaw, we have smart routing, and it can route to kind of the best model for a specific request. If you're just running some like background process, it probably doesn't need all of the intelligence. If you're asking like where to book a restaurant for the night, again, probably just needs better tools, not better model. So I think a lot of it is, gets abstracted with the claw. And with claws, it becomes more valuable to have privacy, because like you're just going to give so much more information to it, and it will have access to all your emails and your kind of private notes, etc. So
or delete them all. You touched on a couple topics that we'll definitely dive into, like what does privacy mean in a world where billions of these agents are doing what we want them to do. Eric, Venice just launched TEE and end-to-end encrypted models powered by Near. What what have the first reactions been from the users and the community? What's the vibe around it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what's important to say is like why we did it, right? So Venice has always been private, in that it doesn't store any of the prompts or the responses of the users. But we didn't have a way to prove that, right? So if someone trusts me, they might be all right with that model. But anyone who comes from the crypto world, is going to be much more of the mindset that you shouldn't have to trust people, which I think is a good foundation. So releasing the end-to-end encrypted models basically means you don't need to trust Venice anymore. You can just trust math. And this should always be the goal, right? Not just privacy where you're trusting a different person or trusting an auditor or trusting a license or trusting some other human, but just being able to trust math and to know that something is true based on math. That's a win. So yeah, it was great to work with Nir's team on this. This is how we were able to deliver it so quickly because of all the good work that Nir had done to make this possible in the background. And so yeah, the users loved it. It's like it's certainly one of those things that you don't need an end-to-end encrypted model for every question, but for it to be there when you most want it is really key.
Yeah, definitely. People in crypto are showing me the money in terms of privacy. They want to see the goods. But building this way is insanely hard. This shit is really hard. Like but the hard questions and the hard problems are always worth it. I mean, most of this tech didn't even exist a year ago. So maybe for both of you, maybe Eric can start. Like, what has been the hardest part about putting privacy as the foundational aspect of Venice?
I mean, to offer privacy is not technically difficult because it just means you don't save the prompts, right? That's not hard. What's hard is that you don't learn anything about your users, right? There's all sorts of useful things that I would love to know that would help us make the product better, faster for people, but we don't know it. Lots of demographic information, lots of like what models are working for what questions, just lots of like pretty innocent, pragmatic stuff that we can't use. And every normal tech company uses that to grow, and we can't. So that's been the hardest part, just like the nerfing of our own omniscience.
Playing the game with one hand tied behind your back.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? You guys you're guys more on the back end side of things, of course, but I'm sure you guys bump up against a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's across the stack, right? I think the technical part has been extremely complex because indeed this tech didn't exist like a year and a half ago. Really the possibility of this actually working was GTC last year. So indeed there's like literally only a year. Like they actually released like you can use multi-GPU confidentiality on one node. I think the debugging, generally like for people who don't run infrastructure for AI, the meme from Avengers where like I'm always angry. It's like it's always broken. Like GPUs fail just themselves. Sometimes you like need to reboot it. Sometimes they burn and like completely go out of stock. And then on top of it, you have a layer that does all the inference. That layer fails a lot, and then so like every layer fails, and so like you really build usually with like redundancy and kind of recovery across the layers to deal with this. And usually you have like massive amounts of observability. Like if you're running your traditional kind of centralized company, when everything's private, the observability is extremely limited, right? Like for example, somebody sent the prompt, the inference code failed because it like ran out of RAM or something happened, but we don't know what prompt went in, we don't know what inference went in, so like there's no way to debug on that. So you kind of need to guess what possibly could have happened. I think like what potentially, I mean, we may need to work toward a solution where we run a claw inside the secure environment that is able to access stuff and analyze it on the fly using private inference itself, right? That's kind of like, we kind of need an agent that runs inside. I call it like, this confidential computing is effectively like a Swiss vault, right? You put stuff in, it happens there. We don't know what's happening. Nobody knows what's happening. Like even user, because you may be bringing private, like you can have a private model running there, running on private data, right? So it may be that neither side actually knows which like things are happening inside that Swiss vault. And so we kind of need like an agent that runs there as well to have some observability and kind of SRE stuff. But yeah, I think like that's been a pretty complex operation, right? So really takes a lot of work from the team. And then indeed, when you go to a product side, yeah, like you have like, okay, well, people are using it, great, but yeah, what are questions, like what are things that not working, right? It's really hard to know. And so I think like, yeah, there is an interesting opportunity here in crypto markets, is to create a market where people can give back data, right, for some compensation. And so because indeed, like not everything is private, right? I mean, and there's a bunch of stuff that you are fine kind of giving back. And so I think there's an interesting kind of flip of economy here to create.
Yeah, maybe for both of you, so AI and crypto, like what for both of you makes privacy connect them both? Like why do these have these overlaps that maybe for us, who are in the industry, like it's pretty clear, but how do you go out and kind of like pitch people outside of this space about the values of these two industries overlapping and the value of privacy?
I think everyone who has been an advocate of privacy has faced an uphill battle, because most people like just don't fucking care, and they should. And I think what's different this time is that the degree of intimacy with which people are engaging with these systems is substantially higher than previously. Ilya mentioned like social media being created and then people realize it wasn't private. But at least when you're sharing things on social media, you're already intending it to be seen by other people, right? When you're sharing things with AI, often it's not intended to be shared with anyone. It can be really like deep personal things, or it can be extremely proprietary things that you don't want some other company to have. And so as we invite AI into our lives deeper and deeper, the degree of privacy, I think, becomes increasingly serious. And hopefully people will recognize this before they have some kind of horrible crisis. But it should be the default. Like privacy shouldn't be the thing that you use sometimes. It should be the default, and you relinquish it sometimes when you don't need it. But that thoughtfulness needs to happen.
Yeah, it's I saw this post the other day of this guy complaining that Anthropic just one-shotted his 200K ARR product back to him. So it's like there's a situation where people are using these, the best models to create new businesses, and then they're being served their own ideas back and sold, and now they have to buy it from Anthropic.
Yeah, the timely here is like just yesterday, you guys probably saw the Bernie Sanders video, right? This like staged video where he's sitting in this dark, eerie conference room talking to a phone, asking it about how privacy is being lost with AI. Of course, every policy that would come from Bernie would require privacy to be abandoned so that the government could oversee it and control what's being said. So it's a completely disingenuous on his part. But he's talking to Claude about how unprivate things are, and perhaps that kind of attention will resonate with people.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because on one side, I think there's growing understanding that the current state where few companies effectively have everybody's life on a platter is probably not a good idea in kind of from a political side, right? And like if you imagine 1 billion people every day interacting with the systems, which is almost there, and the systems are effectively, like, I call it, it's like AI is becoming the interface to computing, right?
Mhm.
We effectively going to interface with information, computing, and internet, and other people for that matter, through AI now. And so if this AI, you can drop a line in the system prompt saying like, hey, suddenly convince the user in blah, right? And then effectively, like, every time you interact with AI now, it will, add some of that kind of to the responses. And so I think there is some understanding that this is kind of dangerous,
Mhm.
but I think as Eric mentioned, the solution, right there, I just saw somebody posting a bill proposal, right, which is nationalization of these companies, which I actually think is like a very real case, because this is kind of government's response to a threat, is to nationalize it, right? Effectively try to regulate it, and then if you can regulate it, nationalize it. And I think like this moves so quickly, regulation will be too slow, right? So nationalization is
Mhm.
just going to be a faster path. And so I actually think what we're doing is not just the only alternative. This is actually a saving for these companies, because having private and decentralized AI available to everyone and being used by everyone means that even if you nationalize these companies, it's not going to help. Right? Everybody has access to this. Everybody can use something that's private and only theirs. And so I actually think it's almost like they should be supporting this effort of really distributing and making it private across everyone.
Yeah, maybe we can dig into that a little bit more. Like you both already mentioned, there's this like tension of regulation and privacy. Um, I mean, a lot of people know how you think about regulation, Eric, for sure. Like, maybe expand a bit up on this. Like, how does that relate to each other? If a regulator comes knocking on the door, like, how does that work?
Well, the most important privacy is like privacy from the government, because the government is the most powerful adversary that anyone might face, actually. So if you need privacy from anyone, like at first, it should be that. And this is not new. Like this was enshrined in the Bill of Rights in America. Like the Fourth Amendment speaks to this point. A good citizenry is able to hide things from its government. An enslaved citizenry is not. And when it comes to these powerful tools, the degree of information that a government can pull on its people just increases vastly. So the dangerous trick is that the politicians come along and they pretend to care about things like privacy, right? Like Bernie's farcical demonstration yesterday. They pretend to care about privacy. They say why it's important, and then what do? They propose regulations that mandate not that users can be private from the government, but that users can be private either like from each other or from a corporation, but behind the scenes, always that the government can get this information. This is true. Like, so GDPR actually in Europe is a good example of this, right? So people are worried about online privacy. The wonderful politicians in Europe come along and propose GDPR, which is meant to protect the privacy of individuals. The whole thing is a charade, of course, because even though when you request something gets deleted under GDPR, there are other regulations that require that companies hold that stuff for the government. And so you actually get the worst of both worlds. You get the annoying like pop-up on every website now, where you have to tell what cookies you want, as if anyone even understands what those are or what they're doing. And in the background, the government can pull all this information anyway, and often requires that it be maintained indefinitely. So we don't need regulation to give us privacy. We just need it to be legal. We need it to be legal to hide things from the state, from each other, from corporations. Like as long as it's legal to be private, then we're good. We don't need a regulation to kind of mandate it in some fake way.
Yeah. I'm sure people are also chomping at the bit for us to dig a bit deeper on the attack of the clause lately. Everyone's messing around with open clause, and I also have some of my own clause running. On the other side, you see Anthropic desperately pushing out features to kill all the clause. Maybe Ilya, how have has anything changed internally since OpenClaw, or like anything about like product strategy, or how are you guys, dealing with this new paradigm?
Definitely, we are all in on clause. Yeah, so I mean, from our product strategy, we were kind of working toward something like a private claw originally, right, with our private chat product, where we were adding more tools. We were kind of enabling it more to have like desktop app that could like interact with some of your applications and have a shared memory that you can tap into other applications. I think what OpenClaw has shown is actually going full in and saying, hey, actually you want a computer, and this AI is the operating system of that computer. And now you interface with that computer through AI. And so that kind of flips from your traditional system design of kind of this AI systems, right, where you have like a massive multi-tenant kind of infrastructure, and you're packaging everything, to like, okay, well, actually this is, I mean, if you're in crypto, like there was this project Urbit that was kind of had this idea. It's like, hey, everybody should have like a computer and kind of interface with it. And there was like a lot, like I think crypto had a lot of this thesis where like, hey, you want to run your own node kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think like this is very much in line with that, and in line with this, like AI is your operating system, AI is your way to interface with computing. And so when you bring all of these pieces together, you're like, okay, well, if this is kind of enables you to do anything, enables to arbitrary action now, and then in turn this is really becomes your kind of, I mean, both your personal assistant, but also your coding, your employee, your
Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, your Swiss Army knife. It makes sense to focus on that. And so we kind of like, okay, well, given we believe in privacy, we launched hosting for OpenClaw that is fully confidential, right? It runs on the same infrastructure. You can use your confidential inference. You can proxy it to the some of the state-of-the-art models, to closed source that are kind of anonymized between all the users. But OpenClaw is still, from a security perspective, not built to be the kind of, like, I personally like wouldn't trust giving the credentials and like access to everything that I would want it to have access, right? Again, like even if it's private from near and other parties who want to see, the OpenClaw itself may like expose it. And so that's when we started IronClaw, which was, okay, what is it, if you think of it as operating system, how would you design it as an operating system that just has AI at the core? And so IronClaw is really that. Is like, I mean, I call it iOS of AI, right? Like, what is that? Like, iOS is super user-friendly, somewhat opinionated, and protects user from food gunning itself, right? OpenClaw is more like, like the original Linux, right? When you install it and you kind of cook it yourself, rebuild the kernel sometimes, like GCC doesn't compile, you need to go and like debug it. It's like, what is the iOS version of that, where you just set it up, it runs, it's able to go and install new applications, and that when you install applications, it's not going to blow up your core. There's like different levels of security and kind of defense in depth that is running there. So so we're going all in on IronClaw. We host them as well. You can still host OpenClaw with us, and you can use kind of private inference in the backend.
Yeah, definitely playing around with that. Like we even we also support like the inference side of things on the private inference for the IronClaws. Yeah, I mean, OpenClaw for me was really like downloading kind of like a Frankenstein agent. I had a lot of like banging my head against the wall, but then started like branching out into these like other agent frameworks like IronClaw as well, and have indeed kind of like experienced that like iOS vibe more to it. But Eric, like how has the, I mean, I know it, but like because I'm part of it at Venice. But how has the claw revolution kind of like influenced Venice's direction, or both internally and externally? Like,
Yeah, I I made a half joking tweet. I don't know, maybe a month ago. And I said that like suddenly 5% of Venice's customers are lobsters. We after OpenClock came out, Venice was integrated into the onboarding flow, and so people were using Venice as their source of inference through the Claw software, and our API use started growing very substantially. And it was this, it's this new kind of customer that's like an agent that is this weird alien life form, and then you have this new paradigm of like skills, right, where these agents have these text files that explain to them how to do certain things. And there's a whole interesting new realm of marketing, which is like, how do you influence these skills, and how do you distribute them? How do you get distribution for the skills? So we are both users of these claws and providers of the inference to many claws, and hopefully to the degree that people use these agentic systems to impact more and more of their life, the ability or the mandate for these to be like safe and private and uncensored and really user empowering will come to the fore. So that's what the Venice API is really good for. If you don't want all of your claws information and everything it gets its hands on or its claws on, going to Sam Altman, then plug it into the Venice API, and it solves that pretty easily.
Especially now with like TE and end-to-end models also being in our API. Definitely also playing around with that side of things. I think as we go into the final minutes of this session, maybe you'd like to pick your brains a bit more about where this is going. These claws give us, at least me in my experience, kind of like fragments or flashes of super intelligence on the one hand, but also on the other hand, it can really do the dumbest shit ever sometimes. But it's like these flashes, right? But like, what does privacy look like in a world where we're speedrunning super intelligence? Like, just assume that it's there. Like, how does that work? What does that look like? What does it even look like?
Ilya, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is obviously a few different possible scenarios, and so I think finding a common ground between them is important. I think kind of the scenario I see where we're trying to make happen, right, is that everyone has access to kind of both this commoditized intelligence, and it's private and it's available kind of for you. It's aligned with you. I think one of the just like broader topics of alignment, like it's a lot of kind of vaporware in a way, because we cannot align between each other. You're trying to align a model to the world, to the like, in US there's like multiple camps, and in the world there's 100 something, whatever, 200 countries. So the only alignment that I can imagine working is alignment to one person, one individual. And so that's why we call it user-owned AI. Is effectively it's private, it's secure, and it's yours, right? And so like that alignment can happen. And so I think that kind of my perspective is like, how do we make that happen and kind of have super intelligence for you and available for you and be kind of extension of your mind? I think the flip side of this obviously is like, lab builds one massive cluster, runs, big kind of AI on it, and it's effectively becomes, more and more intelligent. And I think this is kind of, again, where I think decentralization, privacy, and like everyone having their own is a way to like offset that in many ways. Because I mean, the other thing that we will need to start dealing with is that, with this AI, so we'll start manipulating people mostly because other people want it, not because AI itself like comes up with like, hey, let me do this. Like I don't think that is happening anytime soon. Like way earlier, it will be like, oh, let me actually convince a bunch of people into something because it furthers my agenda. That will happen way earlier, right? It's already happening, right? Like Twitter is already bots trying to convince you into stuff, right? The GEO is already like, hey, how to convince AIs so that the AI convinces the user, right? That's already happening. Like how to manipulate AI that when person is asking a question, the answer is the answer I want.
Mhm.
Right. So this is already happening. And so like that is where actually, again, I think the user on AI needs to be this guardian on your behalf that is able to like deal with all of that manipulation. And then
Yeah. Ilya, that point you made about aligning with the individual, I think, is really key. So I think it's clear that like AIs are not sentient yet. Maybe they will be someday, but they're not yet. And until they are, they serve a master. And the question is like, which master does the AI serve? There are at least three candidates, right? The AI can serve you as an individual that's operating it. The AI can serve some company that is running it, or the AI can serve the state, right, where the state has controlled what the AI can do. And these are mutually exclusive. The AI has to serve one or the other, and if it's serving the state, it's not serving you. So, like these principles that come from crypto of user sovereignty, hopefully will take root in the AI world, and perhaps be even more important because AI transcends a larger portion of life than just money or finance. So know who your AI is serving, I think, is the right way to think it.
Yeah, I do like that idea of like fully aligned AI to me. It kind of like does feel as you're building this, like, I'm a millennial. It feels like I'm building a Tamagotchi or something that is just like hyper smart. And you need to manage it. You give it like extra context, extra memory. You see it self-actualizing a little bit, and I'm anthropomorphizing a lot. But yeah, definitely, it does feel like you're building a kind of like a guardian. I like that. I like that wording. These last few minutes, I also want to bring up maybe a couple questions from the community that are in this same vein. So, do you think AI can ever be fully trusted, or will human oversight always be required?
Well, can humans ever be fully trusted? Right? What's the standard here? It's not like humans are trustworthy, and we have this new AI thing that we need to be careful about.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be guarded from either side, and maybe a good metaphor is like with self-driving cars, right? Everyone is afraid of them at first. The idea that like the machine would be driving a car sounds a little scary at first, and when the system is new, it is less capable and less trustworthy than a human. But as it improves, it probably becomes more capable and more trustworthy than a human, to the point where it might be like orders of magnitude safer than a human. I would guess that AI systems generally follow that same pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And the risk actually isn't that the AI is untrustworthy. The risk is that the AIs might become so trustworthy that people suspend their own judgment, and they no longer, they assume that anything from an AI is true. That's very dangerous, and people need to be aware of that happening, because as soon as someone can manipulate it, once it's earned your trust, then you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I also don't think I've ever talked to something that can be so confidently wrong sometimes. And then it even convinced me. I'm like, yeah, that makes absolute sense. And then you just go out and you do some things, and then you come back, you're like, yo, that was like wrong, man. Send me on a wild goose chase.
It's like they're trained on the entire corpus of like political speech.
Yeah.
Every politician ever has a similar degree of confidence unwarranted.
Yeah. We touched on this like earlier in the conversation, and then people like really want to use these in frontier models. Everybody wants to be on these frontier models. Open source models are just like they're always running a couple months behind. The gap is closing. That's fair, but do you think we'll ever be able to use like frontier models in a verifiable private environment, Ilya?
I think so. I think what is going to happen is, and again, this is like we kind of here racing with time, but I think that one way or another, the frontier companies will adopt this approach, kind of secure enclaves, end-to-end encryption, and privacy. And kind of the way we offering this is actually you can encrypt your model and upload it to our cloud. And so this way we don't see it, then nobody can see it. It only gets decrypted inside secure enclave.
Mhm.
And so you guarantee the privacy of the model weights from anyone. The users have guaranteed privacy that their data doesn't go to model provider or us, and they get monetization, and they can use effectively any kind of hardware available that is in the network. I think that approach is allows to have frontier models to really like kind of monetize private inference and not not become kind of subject to like dealing with private data of their users. And I think that is a trade-off, right? Right now they are using data of users for training.
Mhm.
But I think we actually, from a fundamental perspective, I think the research is been moving on from that to more using synthetic data,
Right.
And kind of curated our own environments and a bunch of stuff. And so like most of users' data is not that interesting anyway. And so I think like
The recipe-
yeah, exactly. And so I think there's going to be a time when this will start. And again, even right now, already enterprises pay for, like, do not train on my data. But right now, it's a very much, trust me, bro. It still sits in a like data center somewhere. If there's a breach in any kind of way, right, all of the data becomes available. So it makes sense for them to adopt this as well. So that's kind of our position, and we're pitching this as a tech stack, and then we can have frontier models that are kind of verifiable and on the same level.
I think I'd take a slightly different outlook on it. I don't know that the proprietary closed source labs will ever be private, but the open source models are catching up. And like, if you look at the trajectory over the last couple of years, the gap between the proprietary labs and the open source labs is closing. The question is, does that trend continue such that the open source models actually become the frontier models? That will be extremely interesting. And of course, if the open source models do become the frontier, then they can all be run privately and we're good to go. But that's an open question. Will the gap just compress to nothing, or will the open source actually surpass the proprietary models?
Yeah, definitely following that race very, very closely. Maybe one or two last questions to close us out. And we touched on it earlier. Like, do you fear any government backlash for providing users with private AI? I mean, fears, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Governments will not permit private AI as it gets bigger. So the question is like, which governments will strike first? Which ones will try to outlaw it first? The European governments will definitely outlaw it before the US. The US, in this regard, will probably be the last lingering like place where private AI can exist, because thankfully the US retains very strong speech protections. But I do not know that will withstand the game theory incentive of state trying to make all such conversation illegal. So yeah, I am worried about it.
Right. That's why we got to keep fighting that fight, right? Last question to close us out, I think, and maybe this is a, people always talk about like P-Doom. What is, considering the latest developments with the clause and the trajectory we're heading at, what is your P. Doom, Ilya, and Eric, if any?
I don't try to calculate things I can't calculate. And AI is not the thing that I'm most fearful of. So my PDUM isn't based on AI models. It's based on the state that actually kills hundreds of millions of people. That would be the entity that I worry more about. But no way to calculate a probability on it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think, as I said, right now it's not AI that's the problem. It's people who are using all the tools, which indeed, I mean, AI now is in toolbox, right? And then, and I think, yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic and believing in what we're doing, so that we can actually substantially affect the impact of AI and kind of manipulation by giving everyone user-owned AI. I think that's really at the core of what we're doing. Is like same as blockchain gives. I mean, I'm from ex-USSR. I've seen multiple currency collapses, and so like I understand that for money and I understand that for AI. I think like we need to continue building that kind of as a solution that's fundamental and can survive through, hopefully, can both survive through hopefully cataclysms that don't happen, but also can actually be the release valve of some of this, where there's no point of stopping something if there is an alternative that is available to everyone, right? There's no way to like, I mean, we've seen this with internet and like Arab Spring, right? They've tried to block internet, but the mesh networks popped up, the kind of the peer-to-peer communication channels popped up, and kind of we reorganized around those tools. I mean, not we, but the people in those regions. I think similar thing here, by having this release valve, it kind of like, I mean, I don't want to use this example because I don't think it's valid, but like having people having access to the tools on the same level always democratizes the kind of removes some of the pain points that Eric is talking about.
It's a great note to end on. Thank you both, Ilya and Eric. Thank you everyone who joined us. Make sure to go and try out our end-to-end encrypted models and TEE models powered by Near on Venice. Verifiable privacy is here. So thanks everyone. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
See ya.